Okay then, good evening. This is the third video I've done on Voxtric, which is the game engine I'm making. Another update video, just me logging what I've got done and what I haven't managed to. So beforehand it used to be a collection of voxels sitting on top of an invisible plane, just to test that that was all working. Well, now I've got it so you can have static and non-static collections of voxels. So this and this are actually two different voxel entities. So if I come along here and just cut out the bottom, you'll see it tilts over like so, and you can damage the two completely separately from each other, and no more crashes like it was before. Now, you may have noticed that there's a lot of pink lines all over the place. That can be attributed to using a texture atlas and me not really understanding fully how the graphics pipeline was working at the time. So basically, when the texture sampler, this is an OpenGL, I'm guessing it's the same in DirectX, samples texture. It samples pixels from an image for the texture. It samples all the ones around it as well, and kind of comes up with a pixel based on that, which unfortunately means in my texture atlas, the textures next to each of these things are bleeding through. Now, this wasn't an issue before because I wasn't using a texture atlas. I was just using whilst it was all still, dynamically changeable, modifiable, mutable, there weren't different types of voxels. Everything was just one value. Whereas now you can actually have different voxels with different values for health, their ID, and whether they are solid or not. Now, where was I? So, whilst that is now in, and I'm using a texture atlas, that unfortunately results in these. Now, I did try a couple of fixes for fixing that. None of them were amazing, but someone suggested I use 2D texture arrays. I mean, there were fixes that obviously worked, but it seems like using or is it a texture array 2D? I can't quite remember the name of it, but texture arrays for each of the different textures will apparently give me the benefit of a texture atlas, but will skirt around this issue. And the way it was explained to me, and from the research I've done, it seems like a texture atlas is just a better way to go anyway, a more logical way to go than the texture atlas, and really they seem to have been designed to fix the need for a texture atlas in the first place. So that's what I'm going to do, that's the route I'm going to go down, and that will fix all that. Still no frustum culling in the game, reason being because I've not settled on the rendering yet. There's a couple more optimizations I want to do for the rendering of these voxel regions, and obviously switching over to texture arrays. So I didn't want to start fiddling with frustum culling yet until I knew that I'd settled on a single way of rendering and it was all going to work. What else did I do? You can see in the corner I've got a frame rate counter and a TPS counter. TPS ticks per second, so how many times the any tickable object is ticking. Again, when you create the game, you can set the target frame rate and whatnot. I've also implemented a load of debugging tools, so if I press F5 now, that will stop limiting my frame rate. You may notice it actually seems smoother. Well, I hope it seems smoother. But currently that's 3,100 frames per second, and I reckon I can get it higher. I reckon I can get it much higher than that, which is obviously totally and utterly unnecessary. And actually, I can hear the fan on my graphics card going with that on, but it's nice to have, to know that I've got that kind of safety buffer, as it were, for more processing, less worry. I know I shouldn't measure it in frame rates. It should be measured in frame times, how many milliseconds the entire frame took. But I figured that frame rate would probably A, do for now, and B, was just a bit generally easier for me to do. I don't really trust the SDL method of getting the amount of time that's passed, and I know there's plenty of others, but it was really just something so I could check to know that everything was working properly, like at least vaguely properly. When I move on to actually fully wanting to record this kind of information and profiling how well the engine is doing, obviously I'll go a lot further to implementing some proper timekeeping stuff, but until then I decided it wasn't necessary and that this would do. What else? Oh yeah, multi-threading. Any edits or mesh generation is now done in a separate thread. So if I unlimit the frame rate again, other than its basic oh no, apparently I'm wrong. Still editing stuff. Slows the frame rate down. It wasn't the other day. Well, I guess I still need to look into that properly. But in essence, it is all multi-threaded now. So any edits to the terrain or the whatever, to any voxel collection is queued up to be made, and then it's made, and then the mesh generation is put in a separate queue, and is also done separately. So that means you can queue mesh generations even if none of the voxel data is changed. Maybe voxel data in a neighbouring region. In fact, actually, yeah, that's one of the things that I've done. You may remember in the last one there were little little areas where the voxels weren't rendered between regions. Well, I've eliminated that now. So now one area will update another if the block modified is on the edge. I had intended to get it so that blocks would fall off when you disconnected them from the grid, like now, before releasing a video, but I'm moving on to another project, not permanently, but I have been asked to help with another project, and whilst I will be continuing to do this, I wanted to get the bulk of the other project out of the way, because it's not a massive project, but it will require some time, and will mean that I'm not working on this for a little while. So I wanted to get a video out just before then, and it's a shame that I wasn't able to get this breaking away in first, but I will be in the future. It's the first job I've got to do. I've actually made the centre of mass calculations a little bit better. They're still in no way accurate, but they're definitely more accurate than they were before, which is a start. As I said, there's a lot of placeholder still, a lot of, oh yeah, in the future I'll get this done, but there has to be. There's no other way around it. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. Please leave a comment if you've got a comment.